Tipu Sultan was known as the Tiger of Mysore. I look up to him greatly, not for his administrative endeavors, which were plentiful and interesting in their own right, but those conversations are beyond my understanding. No. What I find most fascinating about the Great Tiger is his investment into rocket artillery, advanced military technology. It was his father, Hyder Ali, who introduced the Mysorean rocket, sure, but it was Tipu Sultan who used it in great number on the battlefield against the company and inspired the British Colonel William Congreve to develop rockets of his own back in England. Such was the power of the Mysorean military that the English needed to use its abilities against their own enemies abroad and had to rely on numbers and brute force to overcome Mysore, while at the same time standing in awe of its capabilities. That military prowess has been passed down from your fathers and their fathers down to you. All among you have in your blood the ability to overcome those who have oppressed you for so long and those who continue to oppress your neighbors. We now have the technological superiority on the battlefield once more, and with my 13 battalions from Persia added to yours, we have the numbers as well. Let us remind the company that they once signed and broke the Treaty of Madras for fear of what Mysore could accomplish. Let us remind them also of the Treaty of Mangalore and the great way in which the Tiger of Mysore embarrassed not just the company, but Britain as well. Let us remind them that a tiger has claws and fangs alike, and let us remind them that the invaders' ivory towers built on the backs of our people's labors will be torn down stone by stone, if not by the rockets of Mysore, then by its artillery, and above all, by its people. Alexander Gardner addressing his troops before the March on Bombay. Hey everybody, it's PartyElite. Welcome back to our Sikh Empire run in Victoria 3, or perhaps I should call it our Punjab run in Victoria 3, as we've had a few successes over the course of the last few sessions, including the completion of some massive changes to our society, allowing for multiculturalism and the total separation of church and state, or as I referred to it last session, the total separation of Gurdwara and state, I suppose. With those two together, our name changed to Punjab, and in the future, we are no longer going to see discrimination cause any radicalization, and that is absolutely huge, because this has been a constant thorn in our backside, so I'm very much looking forward to never having to see that stat again, though of course there are other things that are adding to the radical count in the nation as well. At least that's one less thing to be concerned with. With regards to things we have to be concerned with, unfortunately there is a bit of a situation in the south over here. The Tamil people of Madras are not too happy about how things went down during the war, and I think we might have pushed just a little too hard, causing just a little bit too much turmoil, and now they've been planning on seceding. I'm not too concerned about this movement gathering steam and actually kicking off. There'll be a diplomatic play. Ideally, they'll back down, but even if they don't, even if they decide to take up arms, it's just us versus their 6 battalions and 7 fleets. Now, granted, they could sway some people over to their side, which is a little nerve-wracking, but I don't think they'll be able to pull it off. Just in case, so we're going to go ahead and make friends with the French over here. They really are our biggest threat in the subcontinent right now. The East India Company has been completely neutered. All of their puppets are just for show more than anything, and pretty soon they'll be our puppets instead. So I'm not really concerned about anybody, not even Portugal, truth be told. Again, their strength is pretty meager. It's just the French that could still pose a threat, so let's, keep improving our relations with them and hope that they don't join this Tamil secession attempt, and let's hope that they don't stick their nose into our pie when we go to war with the East India Company again in the very near future. We're going to push in to try and secure both Andhra over here and East India Company Orissa up over here, and if we can actually transfer the subject, we'll go ahead and get Orissa too, and that way we'll actually have a very large part of the East India Company and its puppets completely landlocked. They'll only have a handful of states and puppets here and there that will still have access to the seas, but apart from that, they'll be in a very tight spot, fully surrounded by us and Awadh, who hopefully eventually will be able to take over as well, but that's a conversation for later. Now, there are a few things that I need to manage before we hit play and let time continue, because there are a few things that we have to take into consideration as far as our bureaucracy is concerned and some of the excess costs that we've added on to our nation for the time being. And on top of that, there are some changes we can make to further empower the intelligentsia and to make sure that the industrialists stop avoiding taxes. Let's deal with this first, because this is something I've been talking about for a very long time, and I'm very excited to finally try and pull the trigger on this. Over to our laws screen, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our education system and push for public schools. Now, public schools are going to cost a hefty bit of bureaucracy, but my hope is that by the time this law actually passes, North Bengal will be incorporated and we'll be able to have our government admin buildings at their highest production methods and producing enough bureaucracy to offset this cost, because this increased education access is absolutely huge. Of course, assimilation is no longer a big deal for us because we have multiculturalism, and that's just something that we never have to worry about again, I suppose, unless there's a political movement against it. But education access is huge, and hopefully it'll increase the overall literacy and then also increase our ability to do research a bit more quickly. So with that said, let's go ahead and enact the public schools law. And because the intelligentsia, trade unions, and industrialists are all interested in this law, they're going to become just that much happier in seeing it be pushed. As you can see down over here, +5, taking them from -8 to -3. So as soon as we hit play, this tax avoidance will disappear and we'll start making just a little bit more money that we can invest in our nation, of course. So that'll be nice and helpful there. And again, like I said, just having public schools alone is going to make a very big difference. Now, if I did try to get the industrialists and the trade unions into our government, we'd have a much higher approval chance. However, our legitimacy would be completely destroyed. Of course, the trade unions can't even be brought in because they don't even have enough clout, but just bringing the industrialists in would completely destroy our legitimacy, and I don't think I'd like to toy around with that for the time being. So let's keep them out of the government for now, and we'll maybe consider bringing them in later on if there are other things and other policies that they want to push that I would like to help them push. I mean, I think there are some laws that I might have, an interest in, but by and large, I do believe it's the intelligentsia and the trade unions that we want to strengthen and keep in our government. On which note, let's talk about the intelligentsia a little bit, shall we? With our latest move in the total separation of religion and state, we are now able to take a look at our government administration buildings and use a brand new production method using the secular administration. This will actually get rid of all of the clergymen who are working at the government administration buildings and replace them with even more bureaucrats, and bureaucrats are more likely to join the intelligentsia, and so this should empower the intelligentsia a bit more, increase their clout, increase the number of people within the intelligentsia, and also increase the wealth that's within the intelligentsia, while at the same time further weakening the Sikh priesthood. Now, this was not available to us until the total separation of church and state, but we have that now, so let's go ahead and make sure that not just this one in Punjab, but of course all of our government administration buildings across the board are taking advantage of this brand new production method and hiring as many bureaucrats as possible and just hurting the clergymen as much as possible and hurting the Sikh priesthood as much as possible as well. Again, if we manage to reduce their clout below the 4% mark, we'll actually see them be completely marginalized, and at that point, it doesn't matter which of their traits are active, they would actually all be inactive, regardless of their approval rating. Previously, I said we have to get it below 5%, and my apologies, it's actually, if they've already been influential, you have to take it down below 4%, but if they were marginalized, to make them influential, you have to take them to 5%. So my apologies for not being crystal clear on that front previously, but just wanted to clarify why you see a 4.4% over here, but their traits are still active. We just have to push them down by another 0.5%, which isn't that far away. So that's very exciting. Hopefully our adjustments with the government administration buildings will make a difference, but it goes beyond those buildings, of course. We also have the opportunity to take a look at our universities and get these guys using secular academia as well. Again, firing all the clergymen and replacing them with academics instead, who, once again, typically end up among the intelligentsia. So that will further empower them, further enumerate them, and further wealthen them? Enrich them. That's the word I was looking for. I knew there was a word there somewhere. Either way, so this will make them a lot of money and give them a lot of power, and that will hopefully change things for the better in terms of our overall split with regards to interest groups. Looking forward to that. And at the same time, I do think we should take a look at our current situation across the urban centers as well. Right now, I'm sure that our pops are paying way too much once more for services. With all the newly gained territories, there's been, of course, a shift in supply and demand. And as you can see over here, services, could be a bit cheaper, and luxury furniture remains an absolute pain. I cannot believe how difficult it's been to bring that price down. But yes, let's go ahead and perhaps focus on services, because that'll be relatively easy to bring down to an even cheaper price point. And even though it's already below the average relative price, it's a huge part of the expenditure for a vast majority of our pop, so it doesn't hurt to bring it down even lower. So with that said, over we go to our urban centers, and let's go ahead and get some of the bigger ones here using some of the more updated production methods. Delhi could certainly use the market squares, and perhaps down over here in Bombay and Madras, we can go ahead and get the gas streetlights going, and maybe, just maybe, that will provide more services by enough that the people of Madras will become less and less upset, and maybe we'll avoid the Tamil secession. I could try and throw things in like, violent suppression and all that good stuff, but I think I've noticed that just a little bit too late to actually make a difference, and we're going to get hit by the secession either way. Nonetheless, we're trying our best over here. We'll see what we can do. Hopefully we can finish these ports in time. I highly doubt it. Hopefully they don't cancel it when they secede, because a lot of money has gone into these ports already, and I would hate to see all that go to waste, because once those ports are built and once we take Madras back, we'll definitely see the infrastructure situation get solved, and the Punjabi market access situation gets solved as well, and all that's going to be very, very important. Now, with getting all these streetlights going, I need to point out as well that at Kashmir, we are in a bit of a situation with our coal mines being maxed out. We can no longer upgrade the coal mines in Kashmir, and the unfortunate reality is the only other place where coal is available in this part of the world is actually in Bihar and in Andhra. Well, there's some in Afghanistan as well, actually. If we want to pick a fight with them for coal, that might not be a terrible idea, actually. But I was thinking, since our future target includes Andhra with our next war, we'll probably be okay. Unfortunately, though, if we look at the production situation, only Bihar of all of these places is currently producing coal. So if we do take Andhra or even all of Afghanistan, we'd have to go in and invest in additional mines and initial mines to even get access to any coal whatsoever. So we're in a bit of a situation on that front. We might need to rely on imports, and I just don't know how readily people are going to be exporting coal to us, and if we're not going to need more convoys, because if I'm not mistaken, our convoy situation is getting pretty tight right now. So again, hoping that the completion of the ports in Madras helps us push this number a bit higher, allowing us to then, again, of course, further import more goods as we need them. But I digress. Apart from the coal mines, we also need to consider the mines in Sindh, where the sulfur mines are not currently using dynamite. We should absolutely switch to dynamite. It should help reduce the price of sulfur even further, and it will get rid of all of this increased mortality, which is ideal. We want to keep our people alive, and that should help out in a few different ways, though it might make the price of dynamite just a little bit too high. So as soon as the opportunity presents itself, we'll go ahead and dive on into the chemical plants over here and just spend some time to upgrade these guys, though we also need to get, oh my goodness, it's all just an endless cycle of doom, isn't it? We'll see how it all plays out. Hopefully we're able to keep all these businesses afloat, but it is definitely some investments we're going to have to make. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and queue a few things up as well. I do want to make sure that in Punjab, our paper mills are upgraded ever so slightly, just so we're reducing the cost of paper even further. Again, I want to upgrade our government administration buildings to increase our bureaucracy as soon as possible, but of course that's going to increase the cost of paper, which in turn will increase the hurt done to our pops who actually consume paper, while also hurting our own budget, right? So let's make sure the paper mills stay as upgraded and expanded as possible over here, while also not sacrificing, obviously, what I spoke about with regards to our chemical plants. Let's go ahead and get these guys set for an upgrade. And back in Balochistan, let's go ahead and get our iron mines upgrading as well. Man, this is going to be very expensive for the next little while, but I think our economy can handle it based on the diplomatic pacts that we secured, and our tariffs as well are looking very good. I think last session I said we'll get it up to 30k. I was short by about 0.7. I think that's fair. I'm pretty sure with the ports in Madras done, we'll definitely see this skyrocket past 30k, and then I'll feel a lot better about how much money we're just kind of throwing into development. But it is very essential that we get all this going alongside the railway in Punjab, which does need to be upgraded by another step, because as you can see over here, we have an infrastructure situation, and of course, ports cannot be built in a landlocked state. I feel like that's a given. But this is all the situation to kick us off with. Let's go ahead and see exactly what happens with the Tamil secession, and hopefully we can shut it down immediately after it begins. though ideally it will never even begin to begin with. Oh, well, this is interesting. It didn't even take like a day before the Enact Cultural Exclusion political movement kicked off, and that actually has a decent bit of radicalism, though very little support. Again, it's the Sikh priesthood that wants to kick this thing off. Their clout is so low that I don't think we'll have to worry about this, and again, hopefully as we continue to shift employment and all that good stuff, we'll see the Sikh priesthood get weaker and weaker, allowing us to, completely disregard anything they actually want to try and enact. Meanwhile, the restricted child labor situation is, I think, gaining some momentum. Radicalism is still at medium. Hopefully it stays there, and I mean, hopefully it gets a bit lower, but hey, we'll see how it plays out as we get closer and closer to the secession. That needs to be our primary concern, of course, though, truth be told, with our military strength, I don't think I'm too worried unless, again, France decides to get involved. Well, folks, it looks like the secession is going to kick off, and there you have it. The diplomatic play has begun, and what is this? Excuse me? The Indian Uprising? How dare you take that name for yourself? How dare you take that flag for yourself, my good sirs? Not a chance in hell will this uprising stand, but, I kind of like this from a storytelling perspective. This is almost like the birth of the national identity perhaps kicks off from the crushing of this uprising, because don't get me wrong, I will be crushing this uprising regardless of what it calls itself and what flag it uses. This is not the true India. Ours is the true India. We'll be forming that, thank you very much. How do they even have the right to use that? How can I? Listen, it's okay. Look, we're going to do exactly what it says over here. We're going to crush the Indian secession, and they'll be but a footnote in the history books, if even that. India will first be mentioned when we form it. Thank you very much. Now, they are worried already, so that's good. They might back down, but just to make sure we keep them in check, I'm going to go ahead and perhaps mobilize at least some of our troops and make sure we apply a bit more pressure. So why don't we go ahead up to the Himalayas HQ and get Jassa Singh Dogra over here mobilized. Just apply a bit of pressure here and there as best as we can, and at the same time, the construction priorities have obviously changed to the paper mills, chemical plants, iron mines, and railway that we'd previously commissioned. And my oh my, that looks a lot better for our economy, actually, than it did when we were trying to build all of the ports, which, again, hopefully the Indian Uprising has not cancelled. It looks like... All right, well, that's good. They are still building all 6 of them. It does still say 1 week, so hopefully that works out. I can't believe I'm actually rooting for these guys finishing this thing off, but we'll see. At the same time, I noticed down at the bottom right corner over here, the Great Qing market is importing paper from us, and it's going to go up to level 8. Now, if they're going to do that, I want to make sure we're charging them fair tariffs. And by fair tariffs, I mean I want to make sure I'm benefiting as much as I possibly can over here. We need to protect the domestic supply and ensure that, the extra tariffs keep us... secure with regards to our POPs needs and our government needs as well. And beyond that as well, let's just make sure we are protecting domestic supply everywhere where we should. Luxury furniture, I mean, even with our... oh, hang on a second. What have I done here? Why have I encouraged exports? Oh, I've made a huge mistake. We need to go ahead and protect domestic supply over here, because then these guys might actually grow past their current levels. Ooh, that's not good at all. When was this mistake made? Let's go ahead and make that change, and... looks like these guys are still shrinking, and it's because of our convoy count. Well, that's not good. That's not good at all. I think it's because we lost the singular port that we did have at Madras. That's okay. It'll be recovered soon enough, but yikes, I guess. Big yikes. I mean, hey, it is what it is. We'll bounce back soon enough, and hopefully, again, we'll just make a bit more money from some of these routes that are being added in, and the extra tariffs that unfortunately seem to have taken a bit of a hit with the loss of those convoys and ports. And I almost missed it, but the loss of Madras also means the loss of our one government administration building that was using the higher level production method. So fair enough, let's go ahead and head on over to North Bengal and get this government admin building using the standardized filing system instead. It still doesn't give us enough of a positive, so head on over to Bombay as well and get this building using that very same filing system. And there you have it. No more tax waste, but the cost of paper is almost certainly going to explode on us over here. So let's just hope those paper mills get done sooner rather than later so we can keep some of these costs down. Now, the Indian Uprising has begun mobilization. It looks like they're here to stay. It looks like they're going to try and fight. And I mean, good luck to them. There are quite a few countries in the area that have some degree of interest. I did not like seeing that go down. Why are the French leaning towards the Indian secessionist movement over here? Please don't do this to me. Please don't do this to me. I wasn't concerned when it was just Siam and EIC, but now we've got Russia and France both joining in. What is going on here, folks? Maybe I shouldn't have mobilized. Maybe I should have appeared meager and meek, and then we would have been okay, but now things are starting to get scary. And now as we enter into the diplomatic maneuvers phase of things, I just have to cross my fingers and hope that nobody switches sides over here. The EIC should not be able to join with the Indian secessionists because they should have a truce with us for the time being, at least, if I'm not mistaken. They do have a truce, so I'd be shocked to see them actually side with the secessionists. But everybody else is fair game, and I don't know what I've done to upset the French so much. We've been trying to improve our relations. This is no aggression from us, so it hasn't increased our infamy or anything. Just a little concerned over here about how this might play out now. Where I was once cocky, I am now myself quite worried, truth be told. Nonetheless, we're going to go ahead and get Justice Singh Dogra over here, advancing the front into the Indian uprising territory to make sure we shut it down as quickly as possible, minimize the loss of life, and minimize the duration of this war when it does kick off, because I do feel fairly confident now that we are, in fact, going to see a war. Let's not forget, by the way, that we do have the support of our puppet, Baroda, and they'll bring some troops. They have 20 battalions, but they're not going to be the most, high-tech or modernized equipment. So I can't rely too much on them, but hey, numbers are numbers, I suppose. As long as they make a bit of a difference, I'll be pleased enough. And what do we have here? A diplomatic play in Dixie. The United States is declaring a war of independence from the French. The French are trying to subjugate the United States of America, and the U.S. is saying no. This is interesting because the US only has 6 battalions to its name and 5 fleets, whereas the French have, just a few more than 6 of each. So that's... I don't know why they're trying that. I don't know what the play is here. My goodness. Now, sure, Great Britain and Russia could perhaps pick the US's side and balance things out a little bit, but I don't think they have any vested interest in the region, and I don't either, truth be told. I'm not about to pick a fight with France when I'm worried they might be picking a fight with me, so we'll keep an eye on how this plays out, but alright. What I thought was a temporary side plot has ended up becoming a rather interesting development in North America. Strange, very strange, but hey, that's their business. This here is our business. Well, this is promising. The French have begun improving our mutual relations, which should indicate that they're not interested in actually joining the uprising over here, but who knows, really? Who knows? As this diplomatic play is kicking off, I'm at least glad to see that the port was in fact built all the way up to level 7, and they didn't cancel any of that, so eventually we'll have access to over 1,000 convoys where we once had access to 200, and where we now, of course, have access to 0. But we're coming for you. We're coming for you, Madras. Don't you worry, buddy. Looks like they're not getting any support from any other countries. Just a few moments left for these diplomatic maneuvers. Excellent. It's time for the countdown to war, and buddy, I'm gonna make you pay so hard for even trying to raise that flag. Like, I'm so, you know what? I'm so bothered that I didn't get to get this flag up before they did. I'm gonna punish them for that, because how are they even able to without securing all of the, items needed for the formation of India? Why are they allowed to wave that flag? Okay, I'm taking things too personally. It's okay, it's okay. Like I said, footnote in history, they'll be forgotten. No one will ever remember. This recording will be removed off the face of the earth as well. I'm kidding, obviously. Don't worry, this episode is here to stay. But we'll all pretend together, right? There's the Indian uprising having broken out, and we will very swiftly crush this Indian secession. Justice Singh Dogra, the hero of many past wars, is stepping in, advancing the front immediately against a decent number of battalions on the other side. And this first battle seems like a rough one. We are outnumbered, but looks like we're coming out on top over here. The early advantage is with us, and it looks like our stats are actually significantly higher than the Indian uprising stats. So this should be good, as even though we started outnumbered, we're just absolutely slaughtering the enemy. And hey, you know what? This will reduce turmoil in the state as well, if you catch my meaning. Look at that. There's that tipping point, and this battle should... game got me there. The game got me there. They're putting up a fight, but no, I think we've got this. Yeah, that's looking nice and comfy. Very nice and comfy. I think we've made that gap large enough that we don't have to worry about this battle anymore. And that's all we really need. We just need one success and then we can even turn to defend if we want to. I think we'll keep applying the pressure because, again, the more of their territory we actually occupy, the bigger the hit to their war exhaustion will be, and I would like this war to end as quickly as possible. The less time we have our troops mobilized, the more money we save, and the happier I'll be securing all those convoys we've just lost, right? So let's try and finish this as quickly as possible, and it seems as though that won't be any trouble for us as, this battle is a very good indicator, I think, of how things are going to play out. Now, of course, now that I've said that, it's all going to turn around and we're going to lose everything. But, hey, we'll deal with that if it happens. Cross that bridge when we get there, as they say, or hopefully burn that bridge before they get there. Captured 7 provinces. Not too displeased by that. And again, that should be a very big hit to their war support. Yes, negative 6.1 per week, whereas we're looking at negative 0.79 per week. So unless things change drastically against us, we should be just fine over here. But it looks like Raja Gopalachri, if I said that correctly. Oh, did I get that right? Is just defending the front, so they're not even trying to fight over here, and they're outnumbered once more, very significantly outnumbered. So yeah, I'm not too concerned about this. And as the screw frigate gets unlocked, we'll now have access to the ironclad technology if we wanted to get that. But perhaps more importantly, we can use reinforced wooden ships now, which will produce more clippers. And I wouldn't be surprised if the price of clippers has actually gone up here. Yeah, I should have been paying attention to this. As we've been upgrading our ports, we've been using more clippers. And now, of course, we are seeing a huge increase in price. And you know what? How much is that with regards to the goods for our government buildings over here? Clippers are, they're relatively insignificant compared to paper. Fair enough, fair enough. Our priority then stays with the paper mills, and since we are done all of our construction from the previous set, let's go ahead and continue to improve the paper mills over here. We have plenty of money coming through, so I'm perfectly fine with doing that. Though dyes and sulfur continue to be tremendously expensive, eh? Granted, again, Punjab still has a bit of an issue with regards to its connection with the rest of the market. Hopefully, as this railway gets completed, we'll see better numbers as far as their infrastructure is concerned. Oh, you know what? I don't think so. I don't think so. And the investment pool doesn't have enough to fully cover the cost of the railway. So just going to keep an eye out for that, but at the same time, I will head on over to Sindh and get ourselves increasing the sulfur mines capabilities over here, and up over here in Balochistan, we're going to push the iron mines just a bit further as well. Yes, going into the negatives, but I think this investment is well worth it. Folks, I can't believe I missed it. I think the United States of America backed down in their diplomatic play, and look at that flag. My goodness. Are you for real right now? That is hilarious. President Patrick Holden, or perhaps I should say President Patrick Holden? I don't know, but he is now subservient to France. They are a dominion of the French. And I'm very excited to see how this progresses. Will France now make a move against the Confederate States of America? I can't recall if I highlighted this in a previous episode or not, but the Confederate States of America actually have a significantly larger number of battalions than the United States ever did. And that's because the Confederate States actually managed to hold on to some of the more populous parts of North America, and that just gave them so many conscripts to work with, and now so many more battalions too. They're in fact a great power just below us. So very interested to see how the French deal with this situation, because if memory serves me correctly, I think the French fought the Confederate States of America in this game previously, so perhaps they'll dive in and do that again just to complete the conquest of North America. I'm not entirely sure, but I'm very curious to see how that plays out. As down south over here, I'm pretty sure we're seeing our victory play out in quick time. Yeah, this is not going to be a concern. Let's go ahead and speed through this attempt at secession and celebrate with plenty of, I don't know, wine and champagne and all the good things that the people of this glorious empire of Punjab celebrate with. Now, with the screw frigate done, it looks like modern nursing has started to spread to us. This should be pretty good. It'll unlock field hospitals for our barracks and conscription centers, which further improves our recovery rates, though at an additional cost, if memory serves me correctly, of fabric, opium, and now tools as well. But again, that recovery rate can make such a big difference in overcoming seemingly insurmountable odds, so I'm very glad to see modern nursing headed our way. Just checking in on our government administration buildings just for fun, really, and it's quite fun to see the bureaucrats who are largely members of the intelligentsia have in fact, yes, taken over from the clergymen. Now, again, don't get it twisted, there are still a few people here who support the Sikh priesthood and other interest groups alike, but by and large, it is the intelligentsia. This now means, of course, that the thing we talked about in the previous session, or perhaps 2 sessions ago now, It means that government wages are now directly impacting the intelligentsia a bit more, and perhaps we should consider increasing their wages. Now, I'll do that as soon as we get out of this situation where our debt is increasing. It won't take too long. We're doing a bit of development now, of course, but after that's done and after we recover a little bit from this situation, we'll go ahead and increase their wages and make sure the intelligentsia are further empowered. If we take a look at the Sikh priesthood, we'll notice their clout is dropping further and further, and I think this huge cliff happened when we fired all those clergymen and they stopped making as much money and replaced them with, the bureaucrats and the academics, depending on which building we're looking at. So that's pretty cool to see. They're very close to being completely marginalized, which again, we'll get rid of this, and I'm very, very happy to see that evolution happen rather quickly, actually, as we continue to make progress on this front over here against the Indian uprising. Oh, what do we have here? A peace deal proposal. What are you proposing? You're suggesting we're allowed to crush the Indian secession and we won't have to revoke Punjabi claims? Yeah, you know what? I do accept that peace deal. Let's end this war as soon as we can. Their war support did not have to reach -100 in order for us to get this going, so this sounds good to me. At the same time, I noticed that our sulfur mines are almost done being built, and we have a decent bit of money in our investment pool now, so why don't we go ahead and continue to try and solve the Punjabi situation with regards to the infrastructure, get that railway upgraded. Again, some of that cost will almost certainly end up hurting us and being drained from the government's funds, but I do think it's a necessary investment, as otherwise everything in Punjab is paying much more than it should have to, even if it's by a slight amount. Why should I let that happen, right? Why should I allow them to suffer when they're our capital state? And there you have it, folks. There is the peace treaty. The Punjabi Empire is once more made whole. Signed on the 14th of December, 1875, the Indian aristocratic revolt secession has been crushed absolutely, without hesitation and without quarter. Though, again, perhaps deep down in the hearts of the people, something is stirring. Apparently, we're also throwing out a bunch of tools and opium. Folks, we need these. We need these to stay here. I really think after we get public schools enacted, we should push towards protectionism, just because I feel like we're being completely drained of resources that we desperately need to hold on to. I mean, tools are still looking okay, but you know what? I do think I would like to get the extra tariffs on exports, and will that bring this trade route down? Nope, it's going to stay at level 18, so that sounds good to me. Let's make more money. Meanwhile, in Madras, let's go ahead and make sure the government admin building is using the standardized filing system. Again, it got downgraded because the revolution, I don't think, had access to the production method, so let's get that in place, and this is looking very promising. And at the same time, let's make sure the ports over here are in fact using, yes, cargo ports. Wonderful stuff. Now, I did forget to, I can't believe I did this. I completely forgot to change our shipyards. So let's go ahead over to our shipyards and get them using reinforced wooden ships. That should increase their productivity a fair bit, though it will drain a few more engines. And I just wonder if we have to upgrade our production capabilities over here, or perhaps start importing more engines as well. We can take a look at the opportunity to import some. Doesn't seem as though any of these trade routes will grow too large, and I think it's primarily because of our convoy count. So sure, why don't we go ahead and further invest in that world for our own selves as well. Head on over to Punjab, head on over to the motor industries, and go ahead and upgrade you by at least one more step, and hopefully the increased usage of steel will allow these steel mills over here to start accumulating some cash reserves. They've been in this constant fluctuation, and I'm just not sure if I want to reduce, how much steel we're putting out, or what I want to do to increase the value of steel. At the same time, of course, we could instead reduce the cost of tools and iron, which is what I'm trying to do, but it just doesn't seem to be enough for these steel mills. Just nothing I do seems to help out. Though granted, we are just a couple of weeks away now, I think, from getting these upgraded iron mines done, which should hopefully then make some adjustments over here. At the same time, these paper mills are about to be completed as well, and I'm really hoping that makes a difference to our overall costs as far as the goods for government buildings are concerned. Again, a huge, drain on our resources. I think the reason why I forgot to, get the clippers built is because we were not spending all that much, and I really have to remind myself that every penny matters. Oh, I was wondering why our construction had become so much worse. It's because Madras had reduced its production capability. So let's go ahead and hit up the iron frame buildings, please and thank you. And yes, that makes a very big difference, and that should hopefully speed up some of the construction we're doing over here. I was very confused for a moment. I was like, why is everything slowed down to a crawl? But that'll be big, and then after these paper mills and mines are done, and I suppose the motor industries as well, we'll hold off on any other construction until we recover, I think, from our debt. I just want to make sure we're in the black before I start diving too deep into debt and before the interest starts to actually get to a point where I get nervous, right? So this should be good enough. As soon as the construction is done, we'll take a couple of months, maybe a year, and just spend money accumulated by the investment pool instead, and just stay focused on that for the time being while we try to recover from our current situation. At the same time, let's not forget North Bengal is being incorporated, which means that we're going to see more and more money flowing in from the state. And I do believe North Bengal should make us a fair bit of money. If we take a look at it right now, it is only, about 20% incorporated, and it's already making us about 1.5k. So multiply that by 5, we're looking at, 8.5k or so? Which is not a bad number at all. It actually outdoes almost all of our states, barring South Bengal, Sindh, and Punjab. So pretty good, pretty good. Hopefully we get there sooner rather than later. It's of course going to take about 4 years' time, so can't rely on that too much now. Our radical count, meanwhile, looks like it's trending downwards. We've done a decent bit of work over here with the standard of living increases, so negative 5.83 million is definitely a nice sight, though I think that's happening because of this weird, I don't know if that's a glitch or if that's the war we fought or what's going on. I think you know what happened. Crushing the secession has completely reduced the radicalization of Madras, and that is huge. Oh, that's great. You can tell looking at the colors on the map. Dang, I wish more places would try to secede. We just crushed the radicalism like that. Oh my goodness. What do we have here? Boys and girls. Debate over whether the new public schools should have separate classes for male and female students and perhaps different curricula as well is causing disagreements over how to implement the new education system. Would anyone question the innate differences in disposition between the sexes or their divinely ordained roles in our society? How could we expect to raise proper ladies and gentlemen if we make no such distinction in their education? Interesting. I take issue with the divinely ordained statement over here in particular, if you consider the fact that we just separated church and state. So I don't think I agree with the line of thinking over here. Purely based on that and considering our society's current laws and mentalities, right? We could say such ideas are relics of a past age. It would reduce the enactment time, but it would further upset the landowners and the Sikh priesthood. Interesting. Or we should work out two separate branches, which would increase the enactment time because, of course, it becomes a bit more complex to prepare separate curriculums and things like that. Interesting, interesting. Now, landowners, where are we at over here? Noble privileges has been activated, unfortunately, and that explains why our economy is suffering so much. We are continuing to push down their clout. Of course, every time we conquer more territory, they grow in number and strength, but we're getting there. We're about to make them less than powerful. They're just going to be influential in another, 5.7 or so percent, which is promising. I mean, hey, if they're already this upset, then what's a little bit more, right? Are there any laws that I could pass to appease them and just improve their opinion of the situation? Or would I not do anything and instead I just have to embrace their noble privileges and work my best to reduce their clout as quickly as possible? That seems to be the situation over here. So you know what? Such ideas are relics of a past age. We have forgone the idea of divine the government funds over here. Fair enough. We could also increase taxation levels ever so slightly, and maybe that's a bit more manageable and palatable because we no longer have to worry as much, I think, about standard of living decreases. I mean, we'll keep an eye out for it, obviously, because it's not like it's completely taken care of, as you can see up over here, but that number is relatively small, so... Oh, wait, hang on a second. This is the number we have to worry about. Oh, no, that's not a small number at all. All right. I'm willing to take this risk for the time being. We'll see how it plays out and make adjustments if we need to. All right, folks, I think it's time to take care of a certain blemish that I've let stay for far too long now. Makran over here rightfully belongs to us. It is a part of the split state of Balochistan, and so I do think it's time for us to consider, let's call it, integrating them into our empire. Let's go ahead and make our move to try and conquer the state. You'll see that there is a potential interest from Russia, Afghanistan, Oman, and Persia with regards to this war, but I'm fairly certain that these guys are not going to try anything. For one, Russia can't. We have a truce with them until, I believe, 1879, so there's a few years left before they can pull the trigger against us, which is good to see. Beyond that, if Afghanistan tries anything, then they'll be very quickly crushed, and they know it, I'm fairly certain. We'll go ahead and puppet them, or perhaps even take some of their territory and develop coal mines up there. Alternatively, if Oman pushes their luck, we're going to go ahead and get rid of their treaty port over here because we don't want to give them access to our market that freely, obviously. So that's an important move as well. In fact, I would almost invite them to fight us, because if they don't pick a fight with us, then I think we'll have to pick a fight with them. Meanwhile, if Persia tries anything, you know what? We'll puppet them too. I don't think they'll try. So let's go ahead and confirm this diplomatic play, and we will take a slight hit to our infamy. It was just about 7.7 or something like that, if I recall the number correctly, which isn't going to be a problem. We've reduced our infamy by enough to finally be able to pull this off without having to worry about too much. And again, I don't think we'll actually have to mobilize here or anything. I'm fairly confident that these guys are simply going to back down and understand that it's much better for them to simply join us. Now, they have immediately started mobilizing, and they would like to see the liberation of Kalat, but none of that's going to happen. If they do decide to go to war with us, if we actually get to the countdown, then fair enough, we'll get some of our troops to march down from the Himalayas or perhaps from the Persia HQ and just make very quick work of them. Again, the North India HQ is adjacent to Makran as well, so if they decide to fight us, we might not even have to mobilize. We could just stand there until they've been crushed to dust and then move in with a single battalion and win the war that way. So again, I'm fairly certain they're going to stay fearful. I'm fairly confident they're not going to be able to sway anybody to their side, and I'm fairly confident this will be an easy victory. And there you have it. Nice and clean. I like when it works out that way. Again, this allows us to have the entire state of Balochistan, and it also adds a few other buildings to our repertoire as well. They had a furniture manufactory over here, so that's good. We can get them using precision tools, mechanized workshops, and you know, they'll be able to produce more luxury furniture for us. So this has actually worked out better than I could have anticipated. Separately, I believe they also have the tooling workshops where we can get the steel tools going, and we can also use the water tube boiler, though maybe we should keep the laborer count over here higher, just so people are able to perhaps see some social mobility. But this should definitely help as they get more employees. It should reduce the cost of tools further and perhaps consume some steel, increasing the cost of steel so that our steel mills will be able to be a bit more profitable too. The government admin building over here, meanwhile, can stick with its current simple organization. I don't think we have to overdo it here, while the textile mills are good to produce using sewing machines and chasing after craftsmen sewing, trying to reduce the price of luxury clothes. I'm so glad to finally see that gold turn to silver. That is very promising. I hope it stays that way, because I could certainly use some downward pressure on this radicalization count, right? I think it's kind of wobbling around 31.1 and 31.0. Not sure how that's going to change as we help out with some of these costs, but I certainly hope to see this number get lower and lower. We were making such good progress just recently. I would hate to see that stagnate. And as our investment pool is starting to look flush with cash again, let's head on over to South Bengal and increase these dye plantations just a little bit more. I'm going to say by 4 steps, because dyes are becoming increasingly expensive, and quite a few of our businesses use dyes, right? So let's help make them a bit more profitable. And I do believe we're exporting dyes as well. So if we can keep growing those export routes at the same time as keeping things cheaper locally, I think that'd be for the better for everyone involved. Now, if we do take a look at our production capabilities over here, we are the #1 producer worldwide, adding significantly to our prestige. And my goodness, when did this happen? We are now rank 4, getting very close to overtaking Austria over here. They're about 212 or so prestige away. That shouldn't be too difficult for us to accomplish. This is very exciting. We're going to be top 3 very soon. And you know what? I think we've earned it. We've done very well in the Indian subcontinent after a very harsh start. So I do think we've earned it, and we very much deserve the success that we're seeing. Meanwhile, radicalization has gone down to 3.0, but I shouldn't celebrate that. We know it could just bump up ever so slightly in just a moment's time. Though if we take a look at the details over here, I'm not sure how these numbers are shifting, but I just want to keep an eye on this one over here, the 1.04 million for decrease in standard of living, and this one, of course, as well for the increase in standard of living, just to see how these are balancing based on the new tax situation that we've applied across the board, right? And I think the curse of services, luxury furniture, and clothes remains. My goodness. All right, fair enough. Let's go ahead and take a look at the situation in Punjab. Let's go ahead and get our furniture manufacturer over here upgrading by 2 steps once more. And why don't we go ahead and consider the situation location in Madras. Where did we get the urban center using market squares? We did, and gas street lights as well, please. We really need to do something about this glass situation, and you know what? I think the lack of profitability over here is actually reducing our ability to produce services. So, very well, let's head on back to Punjab and let's upgrade the glassworks here instead, because the situation in North Bengal with regards to infrastructure is a fair sight worse. So hopefully we're not overburdening Punjab once more, but we most certainly are overburdening our economy here. What can I say? This is the plight of the developing nation, I suppose. We have to get all this stuff done just to try and reduce the level of radicalization. I just want to see people be happy. I just want to see this number drop lower and lower, because again, war isn't that far away. We're just about 3 years and a couple months away from declaring our fresh war with the East India Company, and that just means more people and more radicals, specifically speaking, right? So there's a lot of trouble coming around the corner, and I just want to minimize the, again, baseline that we're starting with before this number gets too large. The loyalist count, though, is looking very good right now, and you can see it's making a huge difference with regards to approval rating. So it's nice to at least see this go up as well, and even though it looks like it's slowing down a bit right now, I will definitely celebrate this spike that we saw over here, at the turn of the year, it looks like. So very pleased with this, at least. Just this needs a little bit of work. Oh, excellent. The political movement to enact cultural exclusion has disbanded, and hopefully that'll actually reduce the number of radicals we were seeing from the political movement being unfulfilled. That was just over 500,000 actually, so that'll be nice to see removed, but we do still have the enact restricted child labor political movement. I wouldn't mind enacting this at one point in time. Again, as I said before, if we get that going, it will reduce the mortality of farmers, laborers, and peasants compared to our currently active law, where it's plus 5%, though it will also reduce the dependence income, which could cause us some trouble as far as the wealth of our pops are concerned. So that's why I want to wait. I don't think we're there yet, where children can stop working. As dark as that sounds to say and perhaps hear, I just don't think that's an option. Now, compulsory primary school is where we're talking. Of course, I hear there'll be no dependent income, but, at least it sounds a bit more good for society than simply slightly restricting child labor. Nonetheless, it is something our people are asking for, and I just wonder when the right time is to pull the trigger on that, because dependent income does make a very big difference. If we just go ahead and pick out, let's say, Punjab over here, and let's grab, let's say, one of our peasant pops over here who are impoverished. Let's get a fairly numerous one. As you can see, the dependent income over here is not insignificant. In fact, the dependents end up making more than the workforce in this pop group. So we can't just start getting rid of that, right? It does make a very big difference. And would you look at that, Sikh priesthood is no longer influential. Love to see it, folks. They are now a marginalized group. So despite their anger, none of their traits are active, and so pious fiction is irrelevant to us. Nawab Singh, you are nothing. Bring all the wrath you wish to bring. Your masterful diplomacy meant nothing, and you are far from an expert political operator. Clout at 3.5%. Hopefully it'll continue to drop, and we managed to do this again without needing to suppress them. We just changed the employment structure at all of our government buildings, reducing how much wealth they were gaining, reducing their positions of power, and influencing people to become intelligentsia as opposed to Sikh priesthood, as it became less valuable to be a member of the Sikh priesthood. You would make less money, you had less job opportunities, and lo and behold, they've been replaced by all of these other interest groups. The intelligentsia did gain some clout, but it's not like a one-to-one transition, right? It's not like everybody who used to support the Sikh priesthood now supports the intelligentsia. As you can see, in fact, the intelligentsia's clout has reduced slightly as well. But those guys did get spread out across all of these interest groups. The armed forces have become powerful, so I think quite a few people ended up over here. The landowners remain quite powerful, and I think some of them ended up over here as well, unfortunately. So I think the next step is really going to be figuring out how to declaw the landowners, and we've been trying over time to push harder and harder away from all the positions of employment and power that the landowners get. But again, every time we conquer new territory, unfortunately, the landowners seem to have all the power. If we just take a look across the board over here, you can see in most places that we control or have controlled for a fair bit of time, the landowners are actually relatively weak, very weak in fact. It makes me very happy to see, because we've effectively pulled off what we wanted to pull off, except for in Delhi, where it'll still be some time before we see that shift. And I suppose goes in North and South Bengal as well. We have a bit of a gap to close, but it's not a big gap at all. Madras as well, of course, only recently conquered. There's a bit of work to do over here, but by and large, we're doing a very good job. We just got to keep that pressure alive and keep that momentum going, and I think we'll be just fine. I think I have to develop Delhi a bit further as well. We've really been ignoring it. As you can see, not much has been done here, truth be told, so maybe we should invest a bit more in Delhi to reduce the power of the landowners here, and the same goes for North and South Bengal. Of course, we have been building all these plantations, but these plantations do have workforces that largely rely on or give power to the landowner interest groups, of course, as aristocrats. So all the plantations and stuff aren't doing as much work for us as we would like, but hey, it is what it is. As we see over here, a new issue from attempting to enact public schools. Never one of them. Some members of the landowners have raised their concerns about the enactment of public schools, since they believe that it would affect employment and promote agitation among the lower classes. Speak of the devil, eh? We were just talking about the landowners and trying to declaw them, and here they come, claws out, fangs bared. Everyone has their own place, right? I think we can all agree on that. If we teach these kids the same things we're teaching our own children, then who's stopping them from wanting the same jobs? And who'd be then doing what they ought to do? Educating for the sake of educating is nonsense, an idyllic utopia that would only lead to misery, empty factories, and lazy workers. My goodness, it really gets you going, doesn't it? Everyone deserves a chance, or perhaps some private funding would alleviate those taxes. So if we do this, there's a chance that there's a huge increase to enactment success, but there's an even larger chance that nothing actually happens. Or everyone deserves a chance will guarantee a slight increase to enactment success chance, upsetting the landowners, but making the trade unions a little bit happier. Now again, the landowners are already as upset as they can be, so do we really care? And if the trade unions were a little bit happier, I'd be happier myself, because work to rule is a bit of an issue as far as state construction efficiency is concerned, and we can't afford to have that. I do believe the extra 10% enactment success chance, which is guaranteed, is nicer to have than the risk of not having anything over here. The 25 to 75% chances not comfy. So everyone deserves a chance, increasing our own chance of getting these public schools enacted. 21.7%, eh? That's not that much, but again, we can't really draw in any of these other interest groups without destabilizing our government and reducing the legitimacy by just a little bit too much to make me comfortable. Now, seeing the investment pool grow, we're going to continue to invest in the infrastructure of Punjab. I do think we can go ahead and maybe double up on this upgrade, because we're constantly developing Punjab, so it just makes sense to make some room there. And at the same time, over here in North Bengal, perhaps we should consider getting these railways upgraded as well, because again, over here we are suffering from similar infrastructure issues, and I just want to get rid of them and give us a bit of room as well, right? Because we're constantly butting up against this, and it's just not helping anybody. All right, we can no longer improve relations with France, and they can't improve their relations with us anymore either, because we've reached the maximum cap for that. Let's actually take a look and see what we might be able to do with the French as far as diplomacy is concerned. I mean, we could get a trade agreement going, but do I really want that? We make so much money off of our tariffs that it just never seems valuable to me to actually get rid of all those earnings. Now, granted, we could perhaps save a fair bit of bureaucracy by teaming up with the French in that way. No, you know what, actually? It's only 3 sets of goods, so that's 45 bureaucracy we'd be saving. Just not worth it. Just not worth it. I would very much prefer to get something like an alliance or something going with them, but I don't think they'll ever be interested until our, I guess, infamy drops and they lose some of their allies. That's not something we have power over. Very well, it is what it is. I'm glad that we get along, though, because that makes them less likely to stand against us, and maybe we'll manipulate them to help us stand against Great Britain before we ultimately push them out of Pondicherry and take the entirety of South India for ourselves, of course. Now, on the topic of Pondicherry, though, we should consider the situation with Oman over here. Are they really holding on to a treaty port in our market? And does that not mean they're able to import from us without having to pay any tariffs? Well, this is strange. So they're importing ammunition and artillery from us, but if we take a look at the tariff situation over here, you'll see that they are in fact paying some tariffs to us. So that's nice, I suppose. Not sure exactly why that's happening, because they do have, again, a treaty port, and they also have market access to the treaty port. And those are the two things you need in order to get, tariff-free trade, I should say. And we should also be prevented from embargoing them, which it looks like all we need to do is make our relations poor and we would be able to embargo them. Very strange development. I wonder if this is a bit of a bug or something, but hey, if it stays that way for the time being, I'll let it be. Though eventually we will have to take this treaty port back because we need the entirety of Balochistan for it to count towards our nation formation. If we just take a look over here, I would assume that Balochistan is still considered split and Gwadar over here does not belong to us, so yeah, we're not going to let that stand, obviously. In due time, we'll dive in there, maybe sooner rather than later. If we do go to take the treaty port, we'll see 1.7 infamy and perhaps the involvement of Russia, Afghanistan, and Persia. Though, let's not forget, Oman will bring with them a few friends, none of whom actually concern me. Maybe we should finally clean all this up. Maybe we should go ahead and get them to cede the treaty port. This should give me all the territory I need, and it shouldn't hurt our infamy all that much, and it shouldn't take us away from our upcoming war too badly, I think. We're losing infamy at about 5 per year. The truce ends in about 2 years' time. We'll be at 42. Add 1.7, we'll be at about 43, let's say 44, round numbers, which means we will not be able to take 2 states. So yes, we'll have to wait a little bit longer either way, whether we pull this move or not. So why don't we pull it? Yeah, why don't we pull it? Again, Russia, Afghanistan, and Persia might get involved, but Russia is off the table because they have a truce with us, and if Afghanistan wants to dive in, I welcome them, and if Persia wants to come through, well, hey, come on through. We'll make a puppet out of both of them. Might even take some, again, Afghanistani territory, just so we can have some additional coal mines, right? So, yeah, sure, let's go ahead and go for it. Hit them up, and hopefully they'll know that the wisest move they could make over here is to back down. They are fearful right now. They would like to liberate Kalat, but let's be real, that's never going to happen. And if we take a look at how people are leaning, we do have Afghanistan leaning in favor of Oman, not surprised there, but Russia and Persia staying down the middle for the time being, as France over here is moving in with a trade agreement offer. Unfortunately, we'll have to decline this, France. I do apologize. There are other things I might be interested in doing with them, but a trade agreement is not in our favor, I don't think. Again, just saving about 45 bureaucracy while hurting our tariffs so significantly just doesn't make sense. Meanwhile, we have all of these railways being built at the expense of the government. I do believe we've drained the investment pool in its entirety, and that's fine by me. They are still pushing a little bit of money into this construction, and we're looking pretty good. Our financial situation is better now than it was when our, when we were at our worst, so that's all good. Again, we have to invest in all this kind of stuff. We have to spend money to make money, as I like to say, and hopefully we don't have to invest too heavily in this war against Oman over here. If need be, we could mobilize, I suppose, some of our they knew what was good for them. Oman backs down, which has very nicely cleaned up our borders over here. We now hold the entirety of Balochistan, and hopefully that's increased the number of some things here and there. Our port has improved because, of course, the port itself was what the Omani people were chasing over here. Can we get this up to a cargo port and get some more convoys coming through, please? That would be quite helpful. And we'll also be able to employ a few more people over here to further shift how the interest groups in our nation are sort of spread out, right? And there it is. Nationalism has been unlocked, giving us access to pan-nationalism, which maybe is what we research next, because it will be what takes us to forming India, right? It's that last step. But we'll see what starts spreading in its place. It looks like organized sports is spreading. Oh, wonderful. We'll learn cricket before we fully kick the East India Company out of our subcontinent, and it'll give us some extra prestige, which might be all it takes to get us to rank 3. That would be nice to see. But yeah, in about 12 to 19 months, we'll have organized sports. And I do have to say, it does surprise me that a cricket bat or a cricket ball does not display prominently as a part of organized sports. I mean, I don't know. When I think about the colonial era and I think about organized sports in tandem, cricket is probably the #1 thing that comes to mind, apart from football. And come on, right? Am I the only one? Maybe. But let me know if any of y'all share that thought as well. Nonetheless, I will take whatever iconography gets us that extra 10% prestige, though all things considered, I actually don't think that'll be enough to take us past Austria. But hey, as soon as we start producing more opium or tea or whatever it might be, we'll definitely surpass Austria. It's Great Britain that'll take some time to beat, but let's just take a look at where some of this prestige is actually coming from. I mean, we do want to invest in our naval power projection, right? So maybe that'll help a little bit, but it is primarily going to be being the #1 producer of a variety of goods. We're actually the #1 producer of clippers as well as dye and coffee, so that's quite a bit, and we're producing a fair bit of gold as well compared to the rest of the world, it seems. A lot of #2s and #3s over here that we could work on and perhaps get just that little bit extra prestige. Again, tea and opium I already spoke of, but there are a few other options here as well. Something to consider. Prestige is not my priority, really, truth be told, and as we conquer more and more of the subcontinent, it'll come kind of naturally, so I'm not too fussed about that. It's just exciting to see the progress get made, I suppose. Oh, it looks like the leader of the intelligentsia actually passed away. Hari Ramgarhia, who I believe was a nihilist, yes, we have his ideology right there as a nihilist, has passed away, and in his stead has come Kapur Bahadur, who's a moderate, so he doesn't actually apply any changes to the ideologies of the intelligentsia. He is reserved, reducing his popularity, but increasing his health, and he's also a political operator, so just slightly increasing the interest group's political strength. Fair enough, fair enough. And why is it suggesting we're going to see a bureaucratic shortfall over here? We should be fine with 837. Maybe it's the completion of the North Bengali incorporation is a bit more expensive than I'd assumed. We'll again keep an eye out for that, because I do believe all we'd have to do to counteract that is upgrade perhaps some of our government administration buildings, or maybe get them using some of the more advanced, filing cabinets or something like that. And there you go, it's taken care of. Just got to keep an eye on these things and make sure we don't get ourselves in hot water before we're, ready to get things cooking, obviously. Meanwhile, taking another gander at the East India Company, we can see their flotilla count has stayed the same, just that 10, which is promising. But something here has changed, and that is the color of their rank. They are now merely a major power, ranked number 11 in the world, and their GDP continues to drop, and we continue to be significantly superior to them in every single way. I am so happy to see this every time. It's nice to just stick my nose in and just see how things are looking, but this probably makes me happiest, their rank having been dropped. I just wonder if that opens up some additional options as far as diplomatic plays are concerned, or if they're still just too strong for us to try to subjugate them in one way or another, because if I do puppet them and then I try to annex them afterwards, that might be a worthwhile move, though there is an infamy cost to puppeting nations as well, of course. I just wonder if we can't do that to reduce just how much that infamy cost actually is. On the topic of costs, though, take a look at this. I mean, things are looking very good. The balance is looking really nice. We could, again, adjust some of our wages that we're paying, but I think we're doing just fine over here. It's not going to be too long before this balance fixes up, and again, we have about 2 years' time before we have to go to war again, and we'll have to start hitting our budget once more. Now, the open hearth process, or the open hearth process, I never know how to pronounce this word, so I apologize. Feel free to correct me. Has been unlocked. That will allow us to get more out of our steel mills. It will also increase employment, so that's great to see. It'll consume more coal and iron, though, and I just don't know if that's an option. Let's head on over to Punjab and the steel mills over here, and oh boy, coal is already extremely expensive, and there's nothing we can do about that apart from importing more, which isn't much of an option, truth be told. So I just don't know if we want to get that change happening right now and end up making coal, even more expensive? Why isn't it listed here? Does it not use coal? Does it use less coal? It doesn't change anything, I suppose. In that case, let's go ahead and yeah, hit it up. Make iron just a bit more expensive so the iron mines are a bit more profitable, and if the coal count doesn't change, then fair enough, the actual cost won't change, but we'll end up with more steel, allowing us to do other things at better prices, though of course then the employment might drop once more as the weekly balance dips. We'll keep an eye on this as we keep an eye on a multitude of things and hope for the best over here. While down over here you can see threshing machines have begun to spread, and this is good for all of our farms, allowing us to use steam-powered thresher machines, though that does cut off some of our employees. Again, something we have to balance because we don't really want to lose employment opportunities for laborers. It's a good stepping stone for people who want to become other types of pop types. So we have to make sure we don't reduce the number of laborer job opportunities there are, obviously. All right, it looks like the steel mills are able to stay productive despite the changes we've made. So that's promising, and we are getting more steel out of them as well, so that's all well and good. And meanwhile, we can see over here, for just a split second there, the radical count ended up below 30 million, and I was just ready ready to celebrate, but of course it popped right back up. I mean, it must mean we're doing a decent job over here. Plus 200k from standard of living decreases, but minus 238k from increases, so that's working out nicely. I think the unfulfilled political movement is just riling people up over here, but overall we seem to be doing okay, I think, and this number has been dropping steadily for a long period of time. As you can see, this slight decrease has been happening for, over a couple years now since the previous war ended. So feeling good enough about that. I would like to accelerate a little bit if we can, but again, I think it's going to be what we're familiar with over here: services, furniture, and clothes. Luxury furniture specifically, though that is now at a silver. Maybe we can just push it a little bit further down by heading on over to the furniture manufacturers at Madras that aren't using mechanized workshops or precision tools, and that should hopefully help make a fairly large difference as they employ more and more people. And this is why it's so important to use that buildings tab, because it just exposes some inefficiencies like this so readily. I'm really hoping that this finally does the trick and brings all these prices down and people can happily acquire their, ottomans and whatever the hell else they're looking for, and they can stop complaining about a lack of luxury furniture. Excellent stuff. The pump jacks have been unlocked, and that should allow us to increase the amount of productivity out of our plantation. So let's go ahead and do that immediately. Right on over to our buildings in the rural sectors, and let's visit our coffee plantations first. Get them using automatic irrigation where suitable. Again, we don't want to overdo this, because while I am glad to see machinists get employment opportunities over here, there's also a huge loss in the number of laborers, as that number gets split between the machinists and farmers. So just got to be careful about that. We also have to be careful about the massive increase in engines consumption, right? So let's make sure we only do it where it counts. So perhaps dyes is a good spot, because dyes remain relatively expensive, and maybe we don't do it across the board, but only at a couple of the largest plantations, right? So South Bengal, get you using automatic irrigation, and yeah, that'll reduce the price of dyes. That's good enough for us right now. And we could take a look at some of the opium plantations as well. I suppose the ones at North Bengal could perhaps use automatic irrigation, and well, they won't be able to actually reduce the price of opium, because the number of engines they'll have to use will probably cause a goods shortage, and that's why that number we're seeing doesn't really work out, where despite opium being produced in larger quantities, an input goods shortage of engines will result in the price actually getting higher because of the way the math will work out. So fair enough. That means we head on back to Punjab, back to the motor industries over here, if I can find them, and let's upgrade them by a couple of steps and hope that this makes a bit of a difference, because we're going to need more and more engines, and I don't think we can import them too readily from anywhere else in the world. Apart from just that, though, we have to also consider what to research next. Why don't we go ahead and get gantry cranes over here, increasing our maximum port level by +1 across the board again. I think that'll make a huge difference in 3 years' time when it becomes available, because, again, something we find constantly limiting us is our convoy count and how it prevents us from importing enough goods, or even perhaps exporting enough goods from time to time. So sure, let's chase after the gantry cranes, and after that I'm kind of tempted to chase after perhaps the ironclads, so we can actually get the ironclads at our naval bases. Or failing that, I wonder if we shouldn't chase after the electric telegraph and then pursue military statistics, which will help reduce the mobilization goods requirements. And that could make a huge difference as far as our costs are concerned when we go to war. There are a few options over here that I'm tempted by, but I'm really hoping that tech spread works out in our favor, and perhaps we get the electric telegraph through technological spread instead. I'm also really tempted to chase after the hand-cranked machine gun and everything else that comes after it too, but for that we'd need the breech-loading artillery first, which again isn't a terrible thing to take on with the shrapnel artillery become available and making us at level with the French military capabilities, at least last time we checked. But that becomes tempting too. My goodness, there are a lot of tempting options over here. 3 years to research that. Let's go ahead and chase after trade first, and then we'll go ahead and chase after breech-loading artillery, depending on what starts to spread after modern nursing has finished spreading in about 8 to 13 months' time. Man, the landowners continue to acquire clout just endlessly, even when we don't conquer more territory. I think after we get public schools going, we're going to get rid of the hereditary bureaucrats that's empowering them so significantly, because the monarchy is going to be the last thing to go, if it ever does go. But hereditary bureaucrats can certainly be removed over here, I think, because as hard as I try, their clout just keeps bumping right back up. But hey, let's set that aside to celebrate a little victory over here, as our loyalist count has finally surpassed 1 million. I think this is the first time we've struck past this number. Very happy to see it, and at the same time, we've actually steadily decreased radical count further and further. So this is all looking very good, and I am very pleased at our progress over here. I didn't think this would be possible at this junction, especially so soon after war and so shortly before we're about to declare a fresh one. So this is exciting. Meanwhile, public schools still haven't been enacted. But what is this about discipline and punish? The role of discipline in the new public schools has been raised by the armed forces as an area of improvement in the plans for this new education system. This is not merely about keeping an orderly classroom so that knowledge can be imparted. It is about imparting character. After all, we've been given an enormous responsibility by the parents of these children who do all they can to raise them as upstanding citizens. Too often, we find boys joining the military service whose character has already been almost irrevocably ruined by an unruly youth and a lack of respect for authority. It needn't be so. Okay, we should focus on the curriculum, perhaps, and ignore what the armed forces are saying, or we could work this into the school system. It'll reduce our enactment time, but at least it'll avoid upsetting the armed forces, who, again, when they get upset, things start to get a little problematic with material waste, right? So, fair enough. Working this into the school system is paramount, absolutely paramount, and hopefully, I mean, by the time this triggers the next time, we'll have a bit of a higher success chance if maybe the intelligentsia get a bit more powerful rather than continuing to weaken. What are you doing? We've given you positions of authority, we've given you jobs. How do you continue to get weaker and weaker? Come on, folks, do something for me here. Do something for me here. All right, folks, as these motor industries get completed, why don't we head on over to Balochistan and actually improve our lead mines as well, because as you can see over here, this stuff's getting kind of expensive. First order of business is perhaps to get dynamite used over here as well. That seems like a good start. And why don't we also, yes, increase the level over here by a couple of steps, and at the same time we can turn our attention once more to the investment pool and perhaps use some of their money to further upgrade our various... Oh, hello. What is this now? Here I am talking about peacetime improvements, and meanwhile the East India Company gets involved with annexing Travancore. Ooh, unfortunately, we can't get involved because of our truce with the East India Company, but it does mean that when we declare war with the East India Company, there might be some lower pop states that we'll be able to take. It also means that if Travancore is able to influence some of these guys to join them for some reason or another, the EIC might be in a bit of trouble when we strike them next. They might actually be at least somewhat weakened. I have my doubts about that working out. I think it's more likely that the people of Travancore will simply back down and allow the EIC to walk all over them, but hey, we'll liberate them soon enough. Just interesting to see that happen. Back on topic though, let's go ahead and improve the productivity of our opium plantations by further expanding them. And yes, I would like to get automatic irrigation happening here as well, but I'm still not convinced that we're going to have enough engines to do that. Let's take a look at the motor industries in Punjab and just see what happens over here as their employment kind of settles down. It looks as though it already has, actually. So is it really not going to make any difference over here? Oh my goodness. Fair enough, we'll have to do a few more upgrades over here, but at the same time, I'm trying to balance things. We're investing in the lead mines right now, so I don't want to invest even further, just so we can accrue a bit of wealth and counteract our current financial situation as far as debt is concerned. Obviously, I'm not worried about the opium plantations, because these guys are being produced by the investment pool, but lead mines and adding on top of that various other goods and resources like motor industries is just going to hurt our economy. And don't forget, a very large amount of this money is going to disappear as soon as the 16th of December 1879 comes about, because a lot of this money is from war reparations. So I really hope we've made good use of it for the time being, because those Russian war reparations aren't likely to come back. I don't think they'll join the EIC in their next war, so let's hope we've made the right moves over here, and we will have to make some adjustments as far as our, tax policies and stuff are concerned, but I think we'll be okay. I think we'll be fine. Meanwhile, it seems as though everyone's decided that child labor is perfectly fine, because the political movement to restrict child labor has been disbanded, and that should now further help reduce the number of radicals from this unfulfilled political movement's demands. So that's very nice to see, and hopefully we'll get some more positive surprises coming our way rather than problematic political movements, right? And what do we have here? With friends like these, the powerful clout that the landowners hold has become a menacing presence over our government. One of our agents has approached us suggesting a less conventional solution. The door has been opened without anyone noticing it until the wind spreads the documents resting on the wooden desk. "Excuse me," a soothing voice announces, carefully picking them up. "I hope that my visit doesn't disrupt your important affairs. However, it has been observed that the landowners are in desperate need of a little guidance towards the right path that will help both them and us." Oh, they surely need our guidance. Will lead to events about diminishing the landowners' power. It'll add securing the power to the Journal of Punjab, or we could say this is utterly immoral. The opportunity is dismissed, and we will suppress the landowners through conventional means. No, I am the Maharaja. I will do as I wish, and by hook or by crook, these other landowners will be brought to their knees. They have constantly caused us issue. They constantly take their noble privileges for granted, hurting our nation's economy in the midst of war, in the midst of development, and in the midst of oppression alike. So, you know what? Yes, I would say they surely need our guidance. And folks, as we kick off this event chain about diminishing the landowners' power, and as we celebrate 1.03 million loyalists and the dismantling of all political movements that would increase the radical count in our empire, I think it's time to call it a session. I think we'll continue to apply pressure on the East India Company. I wouldn't be surprised if they haven't actually managed to increase their flotilla count, so they're not going to be harming our trade routes with the next war, and their rank continues to drop. They are now number 12. Their GDP, I think, continues to drop as well, slowly but surely, and we're feeling rather comfortable with 126.3 million as our GDP, and our rank comfortably at number 4, with Russia trailing ever so slightly behind. Gotta stay ahead of these guys, right? But I'm sure we'll manage just fine. Folks, I hope you enjoyed this session focused on the development of the Punjabi Empire, and I hope you're excited for the next session where once more we will apply pressure on the East India Company. I'm so glad to finally have the entirety of Balochistan taken and to finally push Oman off of the subcontinent so that we can rest assured that they cannot take advantage of the treaty port they had over there. Nonetheless, folks, if you had a good time, you know what to do. Let me know by leaving a like and a comment down below. And as always, a massive thanks goes out to all of the channel members and patrons who've been supporting the channel on a monthly basis. Y'all keep us alive and running smoothly. And of course, a big ol' thanks goes out to each and every one of you for watching. Until next time, cheers.